Joining me now from Tel Aviv is Danielle Bett, Director of Communications at Yachad, which is an organisation that supports a political resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Hello there, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you've heard what Tzipi Hotovely said today about a two-state solution being impossible. I'll read her exact words. How can there be peace without a Palestinian state, she was asked, and she said, Israel knows today and the world should know now that the Palestinians never wanted to have a state next to Israel. They want to have a state from the river to the sea. They are saying it loud and clear. It's now 2 months after the war started. The Palestinian Authority did not condemn this massacre. This is a huge problem. What are your thoughts on what the ambassador said?
Well, it's not particularly a surprising statement because Ambassador Hotovely represents Netanyahu's government, Netanyahu's Likud government, which isn't and hasn't been in favor of a Palestinian state since Netanyahu's been in leadership for over a decade now. This statement from her isn't a result of the 7th of October. This was always the policy of the Likud, and the policy of the current government is opposing two states. And I'll quote Netanyahu, I think in 2019, he said, we want to strengthen Hamas to weaken the Palestinian Authority in order to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state. Equally, Israel's current finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has said that Hamas is actually good for Israel. This government in Israel should also be held accountable because it is absolutely not in favor of a two-state solution and actually is working to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state.
And did you hear what the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem said about the original offer to Yasser Arafat and what would have happened if it had been accepted and how it would have benefited absolutely everyone, Israel, Palestinians, and the whole world for Palestinians to have a thriving state in which they could fulfill their potential, live happily, be safe, be autonomous, all the good stuff that everybody wants for themselves. Did you disagree with what she said, that if that offer had been accepted, this could have happened and we could have seen a thriving Palestinian state, which everybody wants to see, and for 22 years it would have been established, growing and flourishing?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's a question for the Palestinians as to which deals they rejected and why. And I think it's right to scrutinize Palestinian leadership. We should do that just as we should scrutinize Israeli leadership. So it's right to ask those questions. It's right to hold them accountable for not agreeing to previous agreements and what was wrong with those agreements. But I think the question is, how do we move forward now? Because as far as I'm concerned, we have been seeing endless rounds of violence. The status quo isn't working. It's failing us as Israelis and it's failing Palestinians. And so to say we've tried and it didn't work and we give up, surely we have to keep trying. Surely there has to be an alternative to the current status quo, because what we're seeing at the moment is a refusal to accept a two-state solution, a refusal to go into any political process or negotiation. And so we have constant rounds of violence between Gaza, Israel and Palestinians in the West Bank. We have waves of terror attack. We have constant settler violence. We have rounds of rockets from Hamas. And now the 7th of October and the war since has been the worst violence we've seen in the region ever. So I don't think we can look at history and say we've tried, it hasn't worked, and we've given up, because giving up is leading us to violence that is failing Israelis and Palestinians and bringing us to a complete disaster.
What do you see, Danielle, realistically as potentially occurring? I mean, you know, pragmatically looking at the devastating situation now, what do you think, very briefly, politically could be achieved?
I mean, I think in the short term, we need another ceasefire and to release all hostages and provide humanitarian aid into Gaza. So those are the two most urgent things that need to happen and can realistically happen. In the long term, the international community has to get involved. And that's not just America and the West, but partners in the Arab world too, who do not have an interest in seeing constant violence, destruction, and death, and want to see stability in the region. And they have to get involved and push the sides into a resolution and a process. We are not going to get a two-state solution overnight. We're not going to get peace or open borders overnight, but we do have to start political negotiations. We've seen Israel do it with Jordan, Egypt, soon, hopefully, Saudi Arabia. It can happen with the Palestinians too.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for talking to us today.